So I'm actually going to talk about something called a diamond nuclear battery. I will talk a little bit about nuclear reactors, and I kind of want to make a disclaimer. Uh, I wanted to talk about nuclear science in general because it's kind of like a big black box that a lot of people don't really get to learn about. But if I try to tell you about everything that I love about nuclear science and like all of the cool things that you don't really get to learn about in school, this presentation will probably be 10 hours instead of 10 minutes. So I'm going to stick to this one really cool thing that I learned about when I was doing research in New York at the Brookhaven Nuclear Energy Lab. And that is the diamond nuclear battery. And if this is something that's interesting to you, I highly encourage you to read more on it, read more about nuclear reactors. There's so much to learn about nuclear energy, and like it has so many possibilities for the future, and like it can honestly change the way that we even like the way that society works today if just people get on board with nuclear energy. It's really cool. Okay, but so hopefully this one little piece of cool evidence will show you exactly how amazing nuclear science is. So I'm going to tell you about the diamond nuclear battery. So here's a quick overview. Fun fact, I actually made this presentation like back in 2018 when I lived in New York. So I'm excited to present it again. So I'm going to tell you about nuclear waste and give you a little bit more context of nuclear energy, nuclear power plants and such. Then I'll go into the specific waste product of carbon-14, which is a radioactive isotope of carbon. I'll talk about Magnox reactors, which is a specific type of power plant reactor that makes carbon-14 as a waste product. Then I'll talk about graphite storage, which is kind of currently how carbon-14 is being stored as waste. And then we'll talk about how the battery came to be, how it works, and what we can use it for, which is pretty incredible. Okay, so first thing, nuclear waste comes from nuclear power plants. A lot of thing is, especially with like policies and our safety concerns around nuclear energy, a lot of nuclear waste piles up after use in the facilities. You guys may know about Yucca Mountain in Nevada, which is like the US's famous nuclear waste dump. And the problem is we can't really just forget about it and leave it there because it's still radioactive and it's still dangerous. And the lifespan of the dangerous isotopes at Yucca Mountain will actually outlive humanity and the existence of humanity. And so we've actually, this is a fun problem that we have. Is like, how will we, when our language dies and disappears and like the next society takes over, how will we tell them that this mountain is dangerous and will give you cancer? And so there's actually, you can look this up on Google, but I'm not gonna go too much into this, but there's like questions to design the facility around Yucca Mountain to just look scary to anybody that may come across it. So like whoever is discovering our civilization the way we discovered the ancient Egyptians or the Mesopotamians will come across this facility and think, wow, this is really dangerous. We shouldn't just go in here. So, and things like that is like a couple of things that go into that was like putting like really pointy buildings around it, or like actually putting images of dead cats, which is really funny because cats have always been like an important like part of human society. So maybe they'll see the dead cats and they'll be like, oh gosh, that's not good. So yeah, what to do with our nuclear waste is like a huge problem that we have to face. It's bigger than our society, it's bigger than humanity. It's so long-lived that it's crazy. So what do we want to do with this waste? This is one of my friends from New York, he specializes in nuclear waste reprocessing. So if you look up nuclear science in the future, you might see his name on things. He's very cool. And he actually made a complimentary presentation to this one, but unfortunately, because he doesn't go to UCI, we can't look at it, but he's a cool guy, and I hope you guys will hear his name in the future. Anyway, I'm going to talk more specifically about the waste product carbon-14, which is one of those things that goes into the dangerous Yucca Mountain. In the reactor core, gets irradiated by the uranium that's in our reactors. Oh no, my connection is unstable. If you guys can hear me, let me know. But yeah, so that's what exists in our reactor core. And then as these things get hit by neutrons, they become radioactive and they end up becoming carbon-14. Okay, oh, I didn't talk about this. Carbon-14 has a very long half-life. It's almost 6,000 years. So that's why having a lot of carbon-14 will take a long time to get rid of. This here is a Magnox reactor. I know there's a lot going on here, but just remember, I'm going to lean on your engineering backgrounds in fusion. And if you're not an engineer, I understand. I too am not an engineer, so a lot of this goes over my head. But basically, what nuclear reactors do in terms of energy facilities is that they do the basic thing, they turn water into steam, and that steam goes on to power a turbine or turn a turbine, and that turbine goes on to, let's say, power about 25% of the energy of the entire New York City. So that's how nuclear reactors are useful to us. So in this Magnox reactor, we have carbon gas as the main heat conductor. So this carbon gas will flow through the radioactive fuel rods, collect heat, and it'll flow into this heat exchanger where the water is flowing. The water will convert into steam. The steam will leave the chamber, turn a turbine, and then power the entire New York City, pretty much. It's pretty cool. So, and then because this is carbon gas in here, the heat exchanger, that's where we get a bunch of carbon-14, which I just said was very reactive, a bit dangerous. We don't really want to play with that. And so I'm going to talk about graphite in storage. So all of this carbon-14 gets scraped off the reactor as graphite. And so graphite is the way that we store carbon-14, radioactive carbon-14, as waste. And this study was actually started in the United Kingdom because they have a lot of Magnox reactors. United States tends to use a different kind of reactor, but not very important for right now. So we have in the UK like 95,000 tons of radioactive graphite waste. I don't know exactly what the number is in Yucca Mountain, which is US storage, but it's also pretty high. So this is a problem because we have so much graphite and it's radioactive and it's going to outlive humanity. But fortunately, someone came up with the idea of turning this waste back into energy that we can use. And so this idea came from something that already exists called a diamond radiation detector. So diamond is very useful as a radiation detector because it has semiconductor properties. If you guys don't know what semiconductors do, basically you'll hit like some kind of energy burst goes through the depletion region, completes the circuit, and then you get pulse, essentially. Diamond also is very hard, as you guys know, so it's difficult to break. And that's why it's used as a radiation detector because it's sturdy and it's consistent with detecting radiation. So basically the radiation will go through the depletion region, complete the circuit, and register a pulse. And it's used in high radiation areas. I'm going to move my zoom thing because I can't see all my points. There we go. So it's used in high radiation areas, and I'm talking like Chernobyl areas, like we don't want people in there kind of radiation areas, so we send in drones with these diamond detectors and they can give us a reading of how bad the radioactivity is. And in those areas, the radiation is actually so high and so constant that this is not just a pulse anymore, it's continuous, it becomes like a current. And that's where people got the idea of, hey, this diamond can hold a current from the radioactivity. So what if we just put the radioactivity inside the diamond and make it a battery? So this is a process of how they're going to do that, how they have been doing that. You can use chemical vapor deposition, or CVD, to convert graphite into diamond. Basically, without going into any details, it's like a huge kind of pressurizer to reconstruct the atomic bonds between the carbon and graphite and make them more condensed, and then you end up with diamond. So that's what they do with the graphite waste. They convert the graphite waste, the radioactive carbon-14 graphite, into carbon-14 diamond. And then they take this little shell of diamond, radioactive diamond, and then they will case it with a regular non-radioactive diamond so that the radiation diamond is in the middle. And then there's like a shell, a protective shell of carbon-12, which kind of shields the dangerous part from anyone holding the diamond. Fun fact, once they shielded it with the regular diamond, the exposure to anybody holding it was less than a banana. Now this is another tangent I'm gonna go off on. Bananas are like the most radioactive fruit in existence. Fun fact, they have a lot of potassium. A lot of potassium is radioactive. So just so you know, you're getting a little bit of radiation from your bananas every time. But there's another theory that radiation is actually in low doses good for you. So again, there's this big black box I'm gonna not get into, or we're gonna be here for 10 hours. But yeah, if you're curious about radioactive bananas, I highly recommend Googling it. It's very fun, very interesting knowledge. But anyway, you get this radioactive diamond completely covered and safe to hold because of the shell. And when you run it through a current, the radiation finishes depletion reading, and then you get a battery out of it. So now we have this diamond nuclear battery, which not only sounds like amazing, just the name of it, like holy cow, it's actually very, very useful. Carbon-14, as I said, has a half-life of about 6,000 years, or 5,730 years, meaning in 5,730 years, so like what, year 7,700-ish, the battery that we made today will be at half-life, be at half charge. So that's crazy. Its life is immensely long. Imagine if you had this battery in your phone today and it started today, your phone probably will die in the hands of your like great grandkids. It's crazy. Anyway, so what we can use this battery for is like satellites and space exploration. We can go so far with our ships and our satellites if we don't have to worry about charging the battery in like 5,000 years. We could use it for pacemakers or other like medical equipment. Imagine like never having to change like the battery on your pacemaker, never worrying if it's gonna die. We can use it for drone transportation. Imagine not using gas when we're transporting things around the world. Imagine being able to transport like long-lasting environmental help and like tools to third world countries that won't die within any foreseeable amount of time to the human race. So these are the things that we could do with nuclear batteries, and it solves two problems. It solves our waste problem from consumable energy, and it solves our waste problem from nuclear energy. And overall just makes nuclear energy a very clean and exciting and long-lasting way for us to continue our society and to continue to help our planet. That's what I just went over is like consumable battery waste. We can produce more clean energy than carbon emission energy. This is one of my research sources, and I don't think we have time for questions. So I just want to say thank you for listening, and I hope you guys get excited about nuclear energy and nuclear batteries. Thank you.